All right, Thursday's edition here, Culotta and the Prince, the vlog, wrapping up today's show. We reacted to the McDonald's All-American game last night where Benny Simmons had 7 points, grabbed 10 boards, and dished out 3 assists. You know, you saw really all the analysts last night talking about the type of player that LSU was getting in Simmons, and it was the first time really for Simmons to step onto the national stage for the world to see. Jay Williams, we played a cut from him, who was on the call last night. He was slobbering all over Simmons for about 2 hours.
Yeah, and rightfully so. I think when you look at it in some of these All-Star games, it's always about getting mine. I'm gonna get mine. I'm gonna get mine. Ben Simmons was creating shots. He was boxing out. He was diving on the floor for loose balls. I think that when you look at an All-Star game and see a guy who's the #1 player in the country doing those things, you're not familiar with it. It's not something that you ordinarily see, and to see that the way that he performed and the level of play that he had in terms of trying to create opportunities for other guys on his team. That's where I look at this, and I think that's one of the really encouraging things about Ben Simmons coming to LSU, because I think that as a distributor and as a guy who worries about the team aspect of the game, I think that's the most important thing in terms of building a championship team. He's not going to be around long enough for you to be able to program, but he'll be here where you can build that one really special team. You know, Anthony Davis had that special team at Kentucky. You have other guys where they come through. Carmelo Anthony had that special team at Syracuse. It's not uncommon to have one guy come in and, as a freshman, lead his team to a championship in college basketball. He's got that kind of ability where he's going to raise the level of play of his teammates, and that's really exciting there. I also love the quote where they talked to him about the All-Star game, and he said he wasn't familiar with playing unselfish basketball.
Yeah, look, his play says that.
It says that.
It's not just words. And I think one thing you saw last night was that it wasn't by accident that he's billed as the top recruit in 2015. I mean, he took home all the national awards from all we've heard, some video that we've seen during the week, the practices. He really dominated there. And like Derek said, I mean, he brings up the level of play from the players around him, and that's the sign of not a good player but a great player. Andy Cannizzaro was by in the 7 o'clock hour. He's with us usually every Thursday or Friday, depending on when the Tigers start the series. They're over at the Hoover Met over in Hoover, Alabama. LSU's had a ton of success in that park, winning some SEC championships, but coming off a midweek win down at Zephyr Park for the Wally Pontiff Jr. Classic, and still just striking the baseball with a ton of just aggressive at bats. I mean, the approach is very aggressive at the plate.
Yeah, and again, when we have Andy on, you can hear the enthusiasm in his voice. You know, he talked about, I asked him about limiting the number of strikeouts, and one of the things that he talked about is don't waste an at bat, work the pitcher, get your pitch, and then if you get a 2-strike count, be smart enough to understand that with the athletic ability that LSU has, if you put a ball on the ground and you use your speed, you can force the defense into having to make a play. We've seen an awful lot of that. LSU is 14th in the SEC in strikeouts with 125. That's dead last with 125. Some teams have almost 3 times as many strikeouts as that. I think that's good coaching as well as a strong mindset and a good approach at the plate by LSU's hitters.
7 p.m. tonight, 6:30 pregame, Eagle 98.1. We also talked to Andrew Luke, PGA Tour golfer. He, along with John Peterson and David Toms, got into the field at the Zurich Classic. It's coming up at the end of April at TPC, Louisiana. And Jennifer Hale was here in the 8 o'clock hour, the sideline reporter for Fox Sports and the New Orleans Pelicans. Big win closing out. Look, they swept the Los Angeles Lakers here in 2015. It's a bad Lakers team, but anytime you can say that, I think it's good for the resume. And now find themselves a game and a half back for the final Western Conference playoff spot with only 8 games left. OKC fell last night to Dallas. They're without Serge Ibaka. They're without Kevin Durant. Here's the time of the season. If you want to smell the playoffs and you want to get in there, it's where you got to make your push.
Yeah, without question. You got to your Friday night, Saturday night, back-to-back at Sacramento, at Portland. We're going to find out an awful lot about this team. A game and a half back in the standings, those back-to-backs. How much are they going to utilize Ryan Anderson? I think that's the more you can get Ryan Anderson out there, he's a difference maker, and I think that's going to be huge for the Pelicans as they finish up these last 8 games. And look, I want to send a shout out to I cannot tell you how much we appreciate Jen Hale waking up at 6:30 West Coast time to come give us a couple of minutes of our time. That's a dedicated broadcaster right there.
She's a professional, man.
There's no question.
She's the best. At Jen Hale 504 is where you can find her on Twitter. All right, tomorrow we'll talk to Coach John Brady to preview the weekend, the Final Four with Kentucky, Wisconsin, Michigan State, and Duke. We'll have him back on Monday. We'll also talk to Kaylee Hartung, who's a Baton Rouge native who's up in Indianapolis and has spent a lot of time around this Kentucky basketball team Can they close it out? Can they go 40-0? She was also down in Tallahassee for Jameis Winston's pro day.
We'll also have Hunt the Fan, and if you missed it today, check out the podcast. Gary called.
It's for you, Moscona. 1045ESPN.com.